our mentor and dear friend, Alicia Ostriker. Let's all take a moment, too, to thank Catherine and Andrew Kimball for inviting us all into their lovely home and hosting this special event. Alicia Ostriker's poetry has appeared in the New Yorker, Poetry, American Poetry Review, The Atlantic, Paris Review, Yale Review, The Nation. She's a twice National Book Award finalist and I think twice National Jewish Book Award winner. She's also received awards from the Guggenheim Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, and she continues to be prolific, embarrassing us all. I understand today she'll be reading from two forthcoming collections in 2024, I believe, this year.
Supposed to be.
Well, I believe it. The Holy and Broken Bliss, Poems in Plague Times. We all know we're still in them. And by Alice James. And Turn It and Turn It, colon, I'll let you talk about what the colon is. I don't know if you landed on that yet. Alicia is one of our essential foremothers, one of our essential thinkers, spirits, teachers, scholars. She is a mentor of mentors. And of course, always, she is our poet. Please help me welcome Alicia Ostriker.
I am also the excuse for bringing all of you here together.
Thank you.
To bringing all of you together by Catherine, who is the hostess with the mostest. Thank you, Catherine. I'm very pleased to be, hung up as, here, come and have some yummies. And for those of you who don't already know each other, to meet one another, because you all are worth meeting and knowing. So, here, for a while during COVID, I couldn't write anything, and everybody I knew was going online and reading their COVID poems, and I didn't have any. And to me that whole period was kind of like a nothing period. What do you call it? I had a whole bunch of dumb writings about the period after you die and before you get reborn. What's it called?
Bardo.
It's the Bardo. Right. I was in the Bardo, probably with many of you as equal opportunity Bardo inhabitants. But then finally the poems did come back. The book is called The Holy and Broken Bliss, Poems in Plague Time. And the plague time is, first of all, getting older. And secondly, COVID. And thirdly, the illness of the body politic all at the same time. So, all the poems I'm going to read are from that strange period. Oh, and I forgot, this is still in manuscript, and anybody who has any suggestions, I'm still welcoming suggestions, like, should this first poem that I'm going to read for you be called Plague Time? Or should it be called Plague Time 1? Or should it be called Plague Time Ritual 1? You can brood on that. We no longer leave the apartment. We cook or order in and eat amply together. I make a pleasing borscht, he a pleasing French onion soup. Together we dance the long married kitchen dance. He is slowly, steadily losing weight. He jokes that he will not die. He will grow smaller and smaller until I can carry him around in a teacup, exhibit him to my friends. The joke is old, but we both ritually smile. All that year, for my friend Cynthia Hogue, who is a wonderful poet, we were body surfing a wave of public venom, attempting to swim. It was terrific, thrilling. Hate sprayed us on the left and on the right. We wondered, would it smash us into a reef? On screen, our swaggering leader, man we elected, loosed lies from his lips like eels. It was a good moment for cartoonists and journalists and billionaires and lovers of guns. A good moment for poets. Poets thrive on disaster, born as we are within the wound. Elul. By the way, what time did I start here? Like a couple minutes ago? I need to watch my time. Okay. Elul is a summer month in the Jewish calendar before the high holidays, during which you're supposed to be purifying yourself, getting ready to be a better person. Elul. I am climbing a wet, slippery rock face. I have no gear. Can't see to the top or the bottom. Looking around, I observe many other climbers clinging to the same wet rock. I was standing at the shallow end of a wading pool, splashing like a kindergartner, and now I enjoy watching my quiet pink feet against the turquoise and pearly, pebbly concrete of the pool floor. How strange that old age has brought me here. I greet the trees in the park. They return my greeting courteously. I say to my husband, I am convinced the trees are sentient beings. He replies, I bet they make the same mistake about you. Ovid knew trees are people. Demons live in oaks. At midnight, sycamores strip. When we pray to the Sphirot of the trees inquire, can we pray for the hidden women of Afghanistan, for the rubble-housed children of Haiti, for the boys in brilliant sneakers shooting each other in the morning news, and for the murdered journalists here and there? Now that the sycamores are losing their leathery leaves, now that the rainforests are up in smoke like the drinkers of black milk in Poland, now that I still cannot divest myself of anger and envy, my personal sins, whose is the voice demanding I choose life? By the way, you guys at the back, can you hear me? Oh, that's amazing. Thank you. At the Center for Disease Control, they are not slackers. They work like beavers. Science, the hero, fights the virus. The virus ducks and weaves. The dying keep trying to breathe. The bereaved surrender in tears. Mama Gaia remains unappeased. Walking up and down on earth, we have all insulted her. She will have her revenge. Yes, that is how she thinks. You better beware a woman, a mother, wronged, humiliated. Better believe she will do anything within her power to retaliate. They call it climate change. And then there's a last line. So I'm going to read that again, read it with its last line, and then I'm going to take a vote. Yes, that is how she thinks. You better beware a woman, a mother, wronged, humiliated. Better believe she will do anything within her power to retaliate. What if she too considers suicide? That line came after I thought I had finished the whole poem, but then I couldn't put it away. Beauty, a drop of dopamine. Just now, while I was at the sink drying dishes, they caught my eye. Those orange Peruvian lilies on the table with the old Iranian tablecloth. At other times, it is his aging, sculpted face, or his hands at rest on a book while he naps. Breakfast. If I say tart, crisp, have I stated all that need be stated about the apple? Should I append the cheddar cheese, aged 3 or is it 7 years, that combines so well with the apple? Should the context include the conversation with my husband about the shooter, whose mother had called him mentally ill and whose father had given him the gun? That was just on TV last night. The mother is on trial. Or the numbers on the virus this morning? What the charts show of deaths in each state and city and neighborhood compared with yesterday or last week? What happens to the apple then? Time.
Let's see, I think you have another 5 minutes.
Where am I? Time is but the stream of What did I miss?
She thought you were asking for time.
Oh. Time is but the stream I go a-fishing in, remarks Thoreau, implying that he himself is immortal. Or perhaps that the stream of time is the piss of God. An indelicate way to put it. And yet, the pure transparency. To me, it is a nerve slicing, unruffled between cold, fleshy banks. Half paralyzed, I feel like an owl watching the stars revolve, looking like tiny lit-up mice. To itself, the stream I name time is possibly yearning, struggling, full of helpless fear and submission, cut through the material world, of being racing toward ocean, hoping to be clean, fertile, awash in fish, for Henry David Thoreau, Elizabeth Bishop, and other poets to catch, and then to be lost and gone. No more identity, no further fear. Late Autumn Ginkgos. This is a poem that I sent on our New Year's cards this year, but with a different ending. I'll explain that later. Late Autumn Ginkgos. Sunlight revels through ginkgos alongside Broadway traffic. Radiance attacks the season, ecstatic yellow shining. It is almost winter, and still, as I walk to the clinic, the ginkgos sing their seraphic air as if there is no tomorrow. They learned it back in the Permian, before the belated ferns, the flowery deciduous, and the needled coniferous cousins arrived on earth, bringing alto, tenor, and bass lines to the long soprano arpeggio. We latecomers over here, half deaf though we be. Now on the card, I gave it a different ending. I gave it a nice ending because it was a season's greeting. So on the card it said, the long soprano arpeggio, we latecomers over here, when we are quiet and listen. Or something nice. That was nice.
Yeah.
I hope everybody appreciated the niceness. Okay, I'll finish with these two poets that are the opposite of each other. Nocturne. A man sleeps in his car in the fast food parking lot. A cop knocks on his window. The man is passive as a peony, gets out of the car, hands over his papers without complaint, does the breathalyzer quietly, then the cop leans over the man's ear, begins to arrest him. Parking lot lights cast a pale gleam on the naked, speckled asphalt. The video camera stares. Suddenly the man fights like a tiger, struggles free, runs, is shot, dies. We wonder, was it the handcuffs drove the man mad like that? Or something else? Can we guess what word the cop whispered in that black man's ear that night? Last poem, Anything in Motion. A small girl in the park runs ahead of her mother, skipping, jumping, and giggling, looking back over her shoulder to make sure the mother is still there, because what if she is gone? I like seeing her do this. The mother likes it. It makes the mother smile. The older brother also smiles because he loves her, I surmise. He is a sweet boy who truly loves her. Woo! Imagine. The sky above the park parades some clouds. The family heads for the row of swings. I try to imagine them painted by Monet in one of his pastoral scenes. But Monet does not paint anything in motion. Happiness needs to express itself in motion. I don't have my camera with me. What I have is my eyes, my need to praise. Thank you. So,
and does the press already have it, and you're still?
Alice James has it.
But you're still working on it, the poems. I know, I love it.
I
I'm
am-
so excited.
I am the person who would still be revising while the sheets are going through the printer.
I think that's lovely. I'm so glad you shared that. Thank you.
So should the title of the book should the title be poem? Should it be Poems in Plague Time? Is that it's the Holy and Broken Bliss, Poems in Plague Time? Does that work? I worry about titles a lot. And if there's anything you are thinking that I should revise, tell me now. But if you have questions, ask them now.
Do you revise a lot, Alicia?
Do I revise a lot? That's a very good question because some poems I revise and revise and revise and revise and revise. And some poems I don't revise at all. They just, and of course they're the ones I love the best. They just, some poems just, they come. And when that happens to you, you say, thank you. Like, you have to say thank you in order for them to keep on coming. You have to be grateful.
So, did you have a project in mind, or did these poems emerge and
No.
say, this is where we're going?
Yeah.
Okay.
No project
Right.
whatsoever.
You didn't take a
But
vote?
it turned out to be partly domestic life. And partly the woes of our country, and more our country than the world this time around. And partly COVID.
And
Those
aging.
were the things that were there. So, this was, I guess, a couple of years worth of writing, and a little more of fiddling. Yeah, couple of years. Yes.
Hi.
Jill, hello.
Hey, what was different about writing plague poems than other poems?
What was different about
Was
writing
anything
plague
different
poems?
About the process of writing?
No difference whatsoever. They were, I write what comes. I cannot plan. I don't know about everybody else here, but I can't plan a poem. The poem announces itself with a phrase, a line and a half, and then I try to follow up and follow through, and when I stop writing, I think, well, is this a poem, or is this 80% of a poem, so I should keep up with it? Or is it junk? But I don't plan. I like to feel I take what comes, and am grateful. Yeah.
You mentioned that there was a period of time at the beginning of COVID where you couldn't write. Have you had other periods like that in your life?
Yes. As a matter of fact, since you asked, I had a 3-year period when I could write essays, I could write book reviews, I could write, criticism, and all the poems I tried to write were shit. 3 friggin' years. that was bad. And then I wrote the volcano sequence. Because when you're blocked, you know there's something under the rock that you don't want to look at. And you're not going to be able to write until you look at it. So it was 3 years, and then this Greek island started talking to me in a voice which was simultaneously its voice and my own voice, and it had been a destructive volcano that had produced the tsunami that killed, the happy land that every culture remembers. So yeah, I have had those times, and sometimes they last a week, and sometimes they last 3 years. What are you gonna do? Yes. Any other questions?
Alicia, I want to know, because Sean mentioned your influence on poets of the next generation. So what about poets from the generation before yours? Who were those folks who were influential on your work?
Who were the poets that influenced me?
Just from the generation before
Yeah,
you?
from the generation before. So many poets influenced me. Mostly women. I grew up wanting to be John Donne and John Keats, and but then I discovered women's poetry, and I wanted to be all these women poets. And probably my strongest influences as women poets were H.D., Lucille Clifton, and a lot of others, but those two, for formal reasons, were the most important to me, and also because they could go after the spiritual truth so rapidly.
The what truth? I didn't hear the word.
Spiritual truth.
Spiritual, okay. I heard spherical.
So I also brought, where is it? Here it is. Anyway. This has a title, Trouble, also. This will be essays and poems, all with Jewish themes. Some on Jewish poets, Muriel Rukeyser, Gerald Stern, Paul Celan. Some on biblical characters, mostly women. One essay on fathers killing daughters. My original title for it was Turn It and Turn It, Unorthodox Essays and Poems, because turn it and turn it is a well-known phrase in Jewish communities, because some ancient rabbi sage said, turn it and turn it, for everything is in it, meaning Torah, meaning the Bible, everything is in it. And people in our generation turn it and change it, because everything is in it and ready to be spun some new way. So Turn It and Turn It is the title, but then Unorthodox Essays and Poems, I like that, but then I think it might seem insulting to some people, and I don't actually want to insult anybody. I just want to open their minds. So it could also be post-secular essays and poems. And the editors like that. You don't like it.
Why do you think the first one, some people won't like it? What's the,
Because it's like poking.
say it again? What?
It's like poking
No, the
somebody,
title,
giving
the
them a
title.
poke in the eye, saying unorthodox, meaning
Oh.
you orthodox people get out of the way.
Uh-huh.
You have the right to say that.
Yeah, I like that better.
We'll see. I don't know. Maybe. Okay.
Give it to the marketing committee.
Yeah.
So,
So this is the first piece in it. It's essays and some poem sequences at the end, but I'll read the first thing. The preface. Lag Omer, the giving of manna and the changing of our minds. Sermon for the Cambridge Havurah in Cambridge, England, spring 2004. Lag BaOmer is a minor holiday in the Jewish calendar, and Jerry and I belong to this group, a Havurah, which is like a congregation without a rabbi, where you meet on the Sabbath and you do whatever you do. So they asked me if I would give a talk for this minor holiday. Tomorrow, the 18th of Iyar in the Jewish calendar, is Lag Omer, the 33rd day of the counting of the sheaves. Lag is 33, the Omer is a sheaf of barley, and in biblical times a sheaf of barley was put aside for each of the 49 days between the second day of Passover, the moment of liberation from slavery, and Shavuot, the moment when we receive the Torah at Sinai and are forever changed. During the counting of the Omer, we are supposed to purify ourselves, whatever that means, in preparation for this encounter at Sinai, where, God is up there and we are down here, and there's thunder and lightning, and it's very scary, and a very loud voice comes down. It is a time of transition, which is what we feel in springtime, from the narrow place, Mitzrayim, the Hebrew word for Egypt, to the place of revelation. And somewhere in the middle, Lag BaOmer, a day with multiple associations, which I will try to thread through and add a little something. One tradition around Lag BaOmer is that this is the day manna first fell from heaven. After we're I laugh at my own little jokes, excuse me. After we ran out of matzah, manna fell. And we were really, really hungry and worried and really, really upset with Moses and started wishing we had died in Egypt, where we had pots of meat and plenty of bread. We accused Moses of bringing us out into the desert on purpose to starve us. Picture the mob. Picture the mob. We all know what mobs look like nowadays. People will say strange things and do strange things when they are desperate. But the manna is not only food. It is also a symbol of how hope and faith may emerge after desperation. Where does hope come from? It comes from God, of course, in the story. But we can also say that it is something we discover lying on the ground in front of us, and we don't even know what it is, because that's in the story. Here's this manna lying on the ground, and the people say, "What is this?" said the children of Israel to each other. And Moses said to them, "This is the manna which Adonai has given you to eat." And not only that, the manna is a learning device. Each person gathers according to his or her need. Nobody gets too much or too little. Interesting possibility. And then the people are told to gather double, twice as much, the day before the Sabbath. And so they learn what the Sabbath is, because you're not allowed to work on the Sabbath, and picking up the manna would be labor. So you're learning all the time. But before any of this could happen, they had to despair. So manna is what you get on Lag Bomer, symbolizing hope, faith, surprise, discovery of fairness, and discovery of Shabbat, another kind of time. Another story is that there was a plague in the time of Rabbi Akiva, 1st century, I think, 1st century AD, in which 12,000 pairs of his, these stories, I mean, they really could tell stories, these rabbis. 12,000 pairs of his students died because, says the Babylonian Talmud, they did not respect each other. This, of course, parallels the rabbinic explanation for the destruction of the Second Temple as due to causeless hatred among the people of Israel. I think some of us know what causeless hatred is. Of course, we always believe that other people's hatred of us is causeless, and that our hatred of them has a very good reason. And they believe the same. So 24,000 of Rabbi Akiva's students died just during the period of the counting of the Omer because they couldn't see each other as equal human beings. It's a very common occurrence. But on the day of Lag Bomer, the plague was lifted. What does this mean? A loophole of time. A whole day with no hatred and no death and no hunger. Just imagine it. Still another story concerns the famous Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, legendary author of the Zohar, the first book of Jewish mysticism. It seems that Shimon Bar Yochai and his son fled from Roman police because they were under suspicion of studying and teaching Torah, which was illegal, and hid in a cave where a carob tree and a well of water were created for them. They were there for 12 years. Every day they would undress and sit buried up to their necks all day in the sand studying. They only wore their garments for praying, which prevented their garments wearing out. Then Elijah came and told them that that emperor at that time was dead, his decree annulled, and they were safe. But when they were leaving the cave, it was a Sabbath, and they saw a man plowing and sowing, and they were shocked and angry. How dare the people forsake eternal life and engage in the worldly life of here and now, they thought. And from their eyes issued flame. Whatever they looked at burnt to a crisp. But a heavenly voice came forth and cried, "Have you come to destroy my world? Go back into your cave." So they had to stay in the cave one more year. Here again, we see something we're familiar with. Causeless hatred can be caused by excess holiness, excess self-righteousness. We see this in our private lives. Whoever is holier than thou is likely to be carrying a lot of hostility around. And probably that person has suffered. But burning other people to a crisp because you have suffered or because you are very spiritual is not something God wants you to do. So we should try to remember this lesson personally. And of course, there is also a public lesson to be learned, a collective lesson that concerns nations learning that God is not necessarily on their side just because they think he is. There again, as with causeless hatred, the rigidly righteous believe they have a right to be righteous. And the righteousness takes the form of tanks, guns, and bombs. Sometimes suicide bombs. And then more tanks and guns. The headlines, the flesh and blood, the graves, the ongoing holiness, the ongoing righteousness, the ongoing pain. But it can stop. The heavenly voice tells Bar Yochai and his son to stop. And they do. They get a year to think things over. When they next emerge, it's Sabbath Eve, and they see a man running, carrying 2 bundles of myrrh. Of myrtle. They ask him why. He says, 1 bundle is for remembering the Sabbath and 1 for keeping the Sabbath. And their minds are at peace. See, Rabbi Shimon says to his son, how precious the commandments are to Israel. But we can see that this is a new Rabbi Shimon. He has changed. His perceptions have changed thanks to that extra time in the cave. Well, to make a long story short, Rabbi Shimon spends the rest of his life teaching his disciples the secrets of Kabbalah, the upper worlds. On the day of his death, he has not finished. The sun holds still while he reveals all that he is permitted to reveal, and a fire encircles him and his disciples, a blaze of great brilliance. He has completed dictating the Zohar, the Book of Splendor, and that day is Lag Bomer. In Israel, the memory of Reb Shimon is celebrated with huge bonfires. 3-year-old boys get their first haircut, and there are weddings. Where the time of the counting of the Omer is a period of semi-mourning, Lag Bomer is festive, a loophole, a time of possibility and change, fire that is dramatic and thrilling, blazing up to heaven but not harming anyone. Here's the end of what I said to my friends here. When I was asked to speak with you today, I was hesitant because so much of my feeling about the world in these last few years, and increasingly, is deeply sad. Hold on. Because so much of my feeling about the world in these last few years, and increasingly, is deeply sad, deeply pessimistic. I do not need to remind you of the spirals of violence you read about and see on TV every day. And I felt it would be inappropriate. This was 1994. I felt it would be inappropriate for me as your guest to stand here and moan and groan about the state of things as I do at the breakfast table, and as you perhaps do at your own breakfast tables. So I was very happy to investigate this small holiday, this loophole that tells us that manna can be given to us, hope can arise out of despair, disrespect for others isn't necessarily permanent, plagues lift, zealotry can be chastened and turned into wisdom, and we don't always already know what Adonai wants from us. Sometimes a heavenly voice comes and we change our minds. Thank you.